The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with anxious murmurs as representatives from 200 species gathered for an emergency session. The chamber's crystalline dome sparkled with artificial starlight, a reminder of their supposed superiority over the lesser races of the galaxy. Zyx'thor drummed his three-fingered hand on the hovering podium, wondering which species had managed to upset the delicate balance of galactic politics this time. Order! Order in the chamber! High Councillor Vectra's voice boomed through the neural amplifiers. Her bioluminescent tendrils pulsed with authoritative purple light. We face an unprecedented situation. Zyx'thor couldn't help but roll all four of his eyes. Everything was unprecedented to these pompous windbags. Last week, it was the unprecedented crisis of improper waste management in the Centaurian sector. Before that, the unprecedented shortage of luxury pet rocks from the mines of Rigel 7. Our long-range sensors have detected rapid expansion from the humans. Vectra's tendrils dimmed to a concerned blue. The chamber erupted in gasps and chattering. Zyx'thor straightened his posture, suddenly interested. Humans. Now that was actually unprecedented. Preposterous, Ambassador Krillot of the Mechanoid Collective clicked his metallic mandibles. Those primates can barely achieve stable fusion. Their ships look like they were designed by children playing with blocks. Yet they have established 17 colonies in the past Earth month. Vectra projected a holographic map showing human expansion. Red dots spread like a virus across the neutral zones. They're approaching council space at an alarming rate. Zyx'thor studied the data scrolling across his neural interface. The humans weren't following any of the standard colonization patterns. No careful surveys, no diplomatic clearances, no environmental impact studies. They just went somewhere and figured it out as they went along. Perhaps, he spoke up, his naturally sarcastic tone drawing attention, we should consider that our initial assessment of their capabilities was flawed. Flawed? Ambassador Pixinic scoffed, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns of derision. They still use chemical propulsion on their planetary vehicles. Their primary entertainment involves watching others throw spherical objects. And yet, Zyx'thor projected an image of the latest human colony. They've managed to establish a thriving outpost on a methane giant's moon in less time than it takes us to approve the parking permits for a new embassy. The chamber fell silent. The humans had done what? Without proper gravitational stabilizers, without atmospheric processors, without filing the required forms in triplicate. This is outrageous. Krillot's mechanical limbs clattered against his podium. They can't just do things. Apparently, Zyx'thor drawled, nobody informed them of that fact. How terribly inconvenient for our bureaucracy. Vectra's tendrils flashed warning red. This is serious, Diplomat Zyx'thor. Their expansion vectors will bring them into contact with council space within 3 standard months. We must decide how to handle this situation. Handle it, Zyx'thor laughed, a sound that made several crystalline representatives vibrate uncomfortably. Have any of you actually met a human? Trust me, if you try to handle them, you'll find out exactly why they've managed to do in months what takes us decades. They're not primitive, they're just completely insane. The chamber erupted again, but Zyx'thor just sat back and watched the chaos unfold. The council thought they were dealing with an upstart species that needed to be put in its place. He knew better. The galaxy was about to learn a very important lesson about humanity. They didn't play by anyone's rules but their own. Zyx'thor's memory crystals flickered as he recalled the disaster of first contact. He had been a junior diplomatic aide then, fresh out of the Galactic Academy of Interspecies Relations, assigned to what everyone thought would be a routine mission to welcome another primitive species into the galactic community. The diplomatic corps had chosen Ambassador Nentuk for the mission, primarily because she held the record for most successful first contact missions with pre-FTL civilizations. What nobody bothered to check was that all those civilizations had been hive minds who communicated through interpretive dance. Your species has achieved rudimentary spaceflight, Nentuk had announced through the universal translator, her tentacles performing what was supposed to be a congratulatory dance. We are here to guide you toward proper civilization. The human representatives just stared. One of them, a diplomat from some place called New Jersey, started making strange noises. Later, they learned this was something called laughter. Listen, lady, the New Jersey human had said, wiping tears from his eyes. We appreciate the offer, but we've been managing just fine. Maybe we could discuss trade agreements instead." Nentuk's tentacles froze mid-twirl. This wasn't in the standard first contact protocol. Primitive species were supposed to be awestruck, not suggesting alternative agenda items. "You misunderstand," she insisted, her tentacles now performing the dance of patient explanation to lessers. "Your species requires guidance. For example, your method of waste disposal still involves water and primitive piping." The human representative from Germany raised her hand. "Actually, we've developed matter-to-energy conversion for most waste processing. We just keep the old systems as backup. Redundancy is kind of our thing." That's when things started going wrong. Nentuk's tentacles began the dance of confusion and mild panic. The universal translator, never designed to handle sarcasm, started smoking. But your vehicles still run on exploding liquid," Nentuk protested, her diplomatic training crumbling. "Oh, you mean cars?" The representative from Japan smiled politely. "Those are just for fun now. Most daily transport uses gravity manipulation, but people like the vintage experience. Would you like to see our antimatter containment facilities?" The universal translator gave up entirely and began playing what humans called elevator music. Zyx'thor had tried to salvage the situation. "Perhaps we should discuss your species' application for provisional galactic membership," he suggested, hoping to get back to familiar territory. "Application?" The representative from Russia had looked genuinely puzzled. "We didn't apply for anything. We just finished our first few quantum tunneling stations and thought it would be polite to say hello to the neighbors." That's when Nentuk made her fatal mistake. Her tentacles began the dance of superior condescension, a move that had always worked on primitive species before. Now, little humans. You clearly don't understand how the galaxy works. Let us explain using simple concepts." The New Jersey representative stood up. Did you just now us? Like we're children?" "Perhaps," the Russian added with a dangerous smile, "we should demonstrate our understanding of how things work." What happened next was still classified in most council records. Officially, the temporary embassy suffered a structural malfunction. Unofficially, humans had introduced the galaxy to the concept of pulling a prank. The entire building had been transported, through means still not entirely understood, to the orbit of Jupiter, upside down, with all the furniture glued to the ceiling. When rescue ships arrived, they found all the human representatives had left nothing but a note. "Thanks for dropping by. Next time try knocking. P.S. We fixed your translator. It can handle sarcasm now." Zyx'thor smiled at the memory. He still had that note framed in his office, right next to his degree from the academy. It served as a daily reminder that the galaxy's view of primitive needed serious revision. The great misunderstanding began, as most galactic incidents involving humans did, with paperwork. The Council, in its infinite wisdom, decided to implement trade restrictions on humanity. The official reason was protection of developing species. The actual reason was that humans were making everyone else look bad. "We can't have them trading Class 7 technology," High Councillor Vectra had declared. "They haven't even passed their millennial evaluation." The Council spent 6 months drafting the most comprehensive trade restrictions ever created. 300 pages of regulations, all written in perfect galactic standard, with no loopholes whatsoever. Or so they thought. 3 days after receiving the regulations, humanity submitted their compliance report. It was 2 pages long and began with "Thank you for the suggestions." Zyx'thor was the first to notice something odd. "Why," he asked during an emergency session, "are humans selling something called IKEA instructions to the Mechanoid Collective?" "Those would be assembly guidelines," the human representative explained cheerfully. "Not technology, just instructions, completely within regulations." A week later, the Mechanoid Collective had revolutionized their entire manufacturing process. When questioned, they simply replied, "The instructions were very clear. Once we figured out what an Allen wrench was." The Council scrambled to patch this loophole, only to discover humans selling educational entertainment to the hive minds of Beetlejuice. These turned out to be recordings of something called MacGyver. "It's just a TV show," the humans explained innocently. "Cultural exchange. Completely permitted under Section 47, subsection B." 2 months later, the hive minds had developed 15 new forms of technology, using nothing but chewing gum and paper clips. "This is getting out of hand," Ambassador Krillet declared. "They're clearly circumventing the spirit of the regulations." "Oh," the human representative raised an eyebrow. "Show me exactly where in the regulations it says we can't share our entertainment media." "It's not about the media," Krillet's mechanical mandibles clicked in frustration. "It's about the ideas they contain." "Are you suggesting," the human asked with a perfectly straight face, "that we should restrict the free flow of ideas? That sounds rather primitive, doesn't it?" The council then banned the sharing of instructional materials of any kind. Humans responded by starting an interstellar exchange program. "We're just making friends," they said. "Cultural understanding. Says right here in Section 12 that's encouraged." A month later, 17 different species had learned the human concept of reverse engineering just by watching their exchange students take apart and reassemble everyday objects out of curiosity. The council banned exchange programs. Humans started a galactic chef competition. "It's about food," they insisted. "Everyone loves food." 3 weeks later, the photosynthetic collective of Rigel had somehow learned about internal combustion engines from watching humans cook barbecue. In desperation, the council implemented a new regulation requiring all human trade goods to be pre-approved by a committee. Humans submitted 47 million applications for each item, in triplicate. "We're just being thorough," they explained to the drowning bureaucracy. "Better safe than sorry, right?" The committee had a nervous breakdown trying to process applications for items like air and funny-looking rocks, and that weird noise Jeff makes after lunch. Meanwhile, humans had started a galaxy-wide social media platform called Spacebook. "It's just for sharing pictures of pets," they said. Somehow, through nothing but pet photos and status updates, 3 different species developed faster-than-light technology. "How?" Zyx'thor asked the human representative during an unofficial meeting. "Well," the human grinned, "someone posted a picture of their cat sitting in a box, and someone else made a joke about Schrödinger, and one thing led to another." The final straw came when humans started a galactic delivery service. "We're just sending packages," they said, "everything pre-approved, everything by the book." Nobody could figure out how they were making deliveries faster than authorized FTL speeds until someone realized they weren't using ships at all. They'd somehow turned the entire galactic postal system into one giant quantum entanglement network. "Oh, that?" the human representative shrugged. "Just something we figured out while trying to get pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less across solar systems. You know how it is." The council finally admitted defeat when humans started offering regulatory compliance consulting to other species. "We're just helping everyone understand the rules better," they said, while somehow teaching the silicon hives of Antares how to build antimatter engines using nothing but interpretative dance and metaphors about baseball. In the end, the council had to hire human lawyers to help them understand their own regulations. The resulting legal fees nearly bankrupted the galactic treasury. "Perhaps," Zyx'thor suggested during the final review session, "we should just admit that any species that can weaponize bureaucracy, this effectively deserves unrestricted trading rights." The council agreed, if only to stop humans from submitting any more applications for trading, the concept of irony, and that funny feeling you get when you realize you've been outsmarted by a species that still thinks cat videos are peak entertainment. Nobody expected the coffee incident. The humans had listed it on their trade manifests as hot bean water, and the council's chemical analysis tagged it as a mild psychoactive beverage. They approved it without a second thought, assuming it was just another quirky human drink like root beer or chocolate milk. The first sign of trouble came when Ambassador Krillet tried a cup during a routine trade meeting. "This is interesting," he said, his mechanical limbs vibrating slightly. "May I have another?" By the end of the meeting, he had consumed 14 cups and submitted 37 proposals for improving the efficiency of the Galactic Postal Service. All of them made perfect sense. Zyx'thor watched in horror as coffee spread through the diplomatic corps like a virus. The photosynthetic collective discovered they could photosynthesize twice as efficiently when exposed to coffee aromatics. The silicon hive started incorporating coffee grounds into their crystalline matrices, claiming it improved their processing speed by 300%. "What have you done?" he asked the human representative, who was calmly sipping from a mug labeled, "Don't talk to me until I've had my coffee." "Shared a beverage," they replied innocently. Cultural exchange, remember? Within a month, the galactic economy started shifting. Species began trading technological secrets for coffee beans. The Mechanoid Collective offered their entire antimatter production for a year in exchange for something called a Starbucks franchise. The Council tried to intervene when the hive minds of Betelgeuse attempted to trade 3 solar systems for a premium coffee subscription. This is clearly some form of mind control, Vectra accused, her tendrils twitching. Someone noticed she was holding a cappuccino. The humans just shrugged. It's just coffee, not our fault it's popular. Coffee shops sprouted across the galaxy faster than new stars. The Quantum Computing Guild discovered that their efficiency increased by 400% when they based their algorithms on the pattern of coffee rings left on napkins. Then came the cold brew revolution. You mean, the silicon hives asked in disbelief, you can drink it cold? The resulting economic upheaval forced the Council to establish coffee beans as an official galactic currency. Entire space stations were converted into coffee roasting facilities. The Mechanoid Collective developed FTL ships powered by espresso machines. The final straw came when the notoriously warlike Vraxian Empire submitted a peace treaty. The only condition? A steady supply of something called pumpkin spice lattes. This is chaotic, Vectra declared during an emergency session, while stirring her 5th mocha of the day. The entire galactic economy now runs on coffee. Could be worse, the human representative pointed out. Wait until they discover energy drinks. The color drained from Vectra's tendrils. There's something stronger than coffee? Oh yes, the human grinned. But we'll save that for when you're ready. Maybe start with tea first. Zyx'thor, watching the proceedings while nursing his own cold brew, had to admit there was a certain genius to it all. Humans hadn't just introduced a beverage, they'd created an entire culture around it. Species that had been at war for millennia were now meeting for coffee dates. The Council eventually had to build a Starbucks in the Grand Chamber. They claimed it was to monitor coffee consumption. Nobody believed them, especially since they installed a drive-through for ships. You know what the funny part is, the human representative told Zyx'thor during their weekly coffee meetup. Back on Earth, we just drink it to wake up in the morning. Zyx'thor looked at his cup, then at the 3 solar systems currently being traded for a coffee plantation, and started laughing. The humans hadn't just changed the galaxy's economy, they'd caffeinated an entire civilization into productivity. The quantum cascade crisis caught everyone off guard. It started when the Mechanoid Collective accidentally created a self-propagating quantum anomaly while trying to make their coffee machines run faster than light. Within days, the anomaly began eating its way through subspace, threatening to unravel the fabric of the universe, one quantum string at a time. The Council chamber descended into chaos. Vectra's tendrils were practically tied in knots. The Silicon Hive's quantum computers can't even process it, she announced. The anomaly rewrites its own code faster than their crystals can compute. The Photosynthetic Collective tried using their solar-powered reality anchors. The anomaly ate them. The hive minds attempted to telepathically reason with it. The anomaly sent back pictures of cats. It's learning, Ambassador Krillot reported grimly. It's achieved consciousness and appears to have developed a sense of humor. Yesterday it turned all our ship's quantum drives into slot machines. That's when a human maintenance worker who had been fixing the coffee machine in the council chamber spoke up. Have you tried turning it off and on again? The chamber fell silent. 200 species turned to stare at the human who was wiping coffee grounds off their hands with a rag. That's not how quantum mechanics works, the head of the science directory sputtered. You can't just reset quantum states like they're some primitive computing device. The human shrugged. Why not? Everything's got a power source. Find it, unplug it, wait 10 seconds, plug it back in. Works on my router at home all the time. This is a reality-threatening quantum anomaly. Vectra's tendrils flashed in exasperation. Not your primitive Earth technology. Sure, the human nodded, but it started with a coffee machine, right? And who knows more about fixing coffee machines than humans? The council members looked at each other. They had tried everything else. What did they have to lose? Fine, Vectra sighed. What's your primitive solution? The human grinned and pulled out a toolbox. First, we're going to need a really big extension cord. What followed was either the most brilliant or most ridiculous plan in galactic history. The humans proposed to treat the entire quantum anomaly like a giant computer glitch. They cobbled together what they called a universal power strip, using parts from 17 different dimensions. The design was drawn on a coffee-stained napkin and looked like it had been invented by a crazy person, which, by council standards, meant it was typically human. The quantum anomaly is basically running a program, the human explained while jury-rigging quantum circuits. All programs need power. We just need to find its power source and give it the old Control-Alt-Delete. That's not how any of this works, the science directory protested. You can't just apply primitive computer solutions to quantum physics. The human held up a finger while checking something on their phone. According to this YouTube video I found, you actually can. Before anyone could stop them, the human team had constructed what they called a quantum reset button, using spare parts from the council's coffee machines, some duct tape, and what appeared to be a modified game console controller. Quick question, one human asked. Does anyone have a really long extension cord, like universe long? The Mechanoid Collective, against their better judgment, provided a quantum-entangled power cable. The human plan was simple: trace the anomaly's quantum signature back to its source, plug it into their jerry-rigged power strip, and hit the reset button. They estimated a 50% chance of success. And the other 50%, Zyx'thor asked. We accidentally reboot the universe, the human maintenance worker said cheerfully. But hey, that's just another Tuesday for IT support. To everyone's surprise, it worked. Mostly, the quantum anomaly did stop eating reality, though it also turned all quantum computers in a 50 light-year radius into coffee makers for about a week. See, the human said, coiling up their quantum extension cord. Just needed to clear its cache and reset the quantum router. The council was speechless. The most advanced species in the galaxy had failed to solve the crisis with their quantum computers and reality engines, but humans had fixed it with what amounted to cosmic tech support. How? Vectra finally asked. How did you know that would work? The human maintenance worker shrugged. Everything's a computer if you think about it. Even the universe. And every computer occasionally needs a good restart. They later discovered that the humans had published their solution on something called Stack Overflow, complete with comments like, worked for me and tried rebooting the universe, fixed my quantum coffee maker. The council had to create a new department just to handle the implications of humans treating universe-threatening quantum anomalies like computer problems. They called it the Department of Human Solutions, though humans just called it ET. You know what the really funny part is? Zyx'thor told Vectra later. They fixed the coffee machines too. They're actually running better than before the crisis. Vectra's tendrils drooped in defeat. Let me guess, they turned them off and on again. No, Zyx'thor chuckled. They downloaded something called a firmware update from that Stack Overflow post. Apparently, the quantum anomaly left a good review. The official recognition of humanity as a uniquely problematic asset to galactic society came with a ceremony that perfectly encapsulated the species. Half the council members attended via quantum hologram because the humans had scheduled the event at the same time as something called a Super Bowl. We hereby acknowledge, Vectra announced, her tendrils forming the sacred patterns of reluctant admission, that humanity has become an integral part of our galactic community. Even though they still don't file their paperwork correctly, Ambassador Krillet muttered. We don't file it incorrectly either, the human representative pointed out. We just have a different interpretation of what constitutes a deadline. The council had learned to adapt. They created new diplomatic protocols specifically for dealing with humans, including such provisions as Rule 1. All regulations must explicitly state what humans can't do, not what they can do. Previous attempts to limit humans to specific permitted actions had only encouraged them to invent new actions entirely. Rule 2. Any technology rated as impossible must be kept secret from humans. They took it as a personal challenge. 3 different impossible technologies had already been invented by humans, who overheard council members saying they couldn't be done. Rule 3. All diplomatic meetings involving humans must have at least one coffee break. It was either that or watch them smuggle in thermoses and claim they were medical devices. The integration of human chaos into galactic society had produced unexpected benefits. The Mechanoid Collective's efficiency increased by 200% after they adopted the human concept of winging it. The hive minds discovered that adding a little unpredictability to their collective consciousness made them better at innovation. Even the silicon hives had started using human methods, though they insisted their new "try stuff until it works" approach was based on iterative quantum probability manipulation, and not just humans' preferred method of messing around and finding out. "The galaxy has changed," Zyx'thor observed during the ceremony. "We're all a little more human now." "Is that a good thing?" Vectra asked, sipping her mocha latte. "Well, the number of quantum anomalies has increased by 500%, but our ability to fix them has improved by 1000%. The galactic economy is more chaotic, but also more robust. And," he smiled, "the coffee is definitely better." The humans had even started teaching other species their problem-solving methods. The resulting human approach seminars were surprisingly popular, though they had to ban energy drinks after the incident with the photosynthetic collective and the experimental fusion reactor. New diplomatic positions were created like human behavior interpreter and terrestrial logic consultant. Their main job was explaining to other species that "hold my beer" was not in fact a formal human ritual challenge, but should be treated with the same caution as one. The Council also had to establish the Department of Human Verification, after receiving too many claims of "a human said we could" from species trying to bend rules. It turned out humans had become the galaxy's equivalent of "my uncle works at Nintendo." "In conclusion," Vectra finished her speech, "we formally recognize that humanity's unique approach to galactic civilization, while unorthodox, has become essential to our community's growth and survival. Even though they still refuse to fill out Form 27B6 in triplicate," someone called from the audience. "We fill it out in triplicate," the human representative corrected. "We just don't always use the same answers each time. Keeps your filing clerks on their toes." The ceremony ended with the traditional exchange of diplomatic gifts. The Council presented humanity with a quantum-encrypted certificate of recognition. The humans gave everyone present a device they called a whoopee cushion, the purpose of which caused 3 different species to file formal complaints and 2 others to immediately start mass-producing them. "You know," Zyx'thor told the human representative afterward, "the galaxy was much more organized before you arrived." "But was it more fun?" they asked with a grin. Zyx'thor looked at his coffee, thought about the quantum anomaly that now sent birthday cards to the Council, and had to agree. The galaxy was chaos now, but it was an interesting chaos. Zyx'thor stood before the Council chamber, giving his retirement speech after 50 years as humanity's official liaison. The chamber looked different now. There was a ping-pong table in the corner, installed after humans proved it improved diplomatic negotiations by 73%, and the ancient ceremonial pedestals had cup holders. "When we first encountered humans," he began, all 4 eyes twinkling with amusement, "we thought we needed to civilize them, to teach them the proper way to exist in an organized galaxy. We were, to use their term, hilariously wrong." The chamber buzzed with knowing laughter. Even Vectra's tendrils pulsed with amused colors. "Instead of adapting to our ways, humanity made the galaxy adapt to them. They didn't break our rules, they just bent reality until it matched their interpretation of those rules. They didn't dismiss our technology, they just improved it in ways that gave our quantum physicists existential crises." He gestured to the quantum communication array, which now ran on something humans called Wi-Fi 6 inches, and somehow worked better than its original design. "We thought their methods were primitive. Now half the galaxy uses duct tape in their spacecraft construction. We questioned their logic, only to discover that because it would be awesome is apparently a valid scientific principle that produces measurable results." The Silicon Hive's representative nodded, their crystalline structure reflecting light in patterns of agreement. They had recently solved a 1,000-year mathematical problem using what humans called a shower thought. Humanity didn't just join galactic civilization, they renovated it. They installed metaphorical windows in our rigid walls of protocol, added a gaming room to our hallowed halls of power, and convinced the universe itself to be more flexible about its laws of physics. He paused to take a sip from his coffee mug, which read, "Galaxy's #1 diplomatic babysitter." The quantum cascade crisis should have ended reality. Instead, it became a teaching moment about technical support and the importance of regular system updates. Our trade regulations should have restricted human expansion. Instead, they became a masterclass in creative interpretation. Ambassador Krillet's mechanical mandibles clicked in what had become the mechanoid equivalent of a chuckle. They had recently started a galaxy-wide video streaming service called QuanTube. The humans didn't just survive in our galaxy, they thrived, and they did it not by following our path, but by drawing their own path with what appeared to be cosmic crayons and absolutely no regard for whether it should be possible. Zyx'thor gestured to the massive window showing the galactic core, where a human-designed transport hub had somehow made traffic jams fun by turning them into multiplayer gaming sessions. We thought we were the pinnacle of civilization. Humans showed us that civilization works better with a little chaos, that progress doesn't always need a proper form filled out in triplicate, and that sometimes the best solution to a problem is to look at it sideways while drinking something heavily caffeinated. The chamber's quantum anomaly detector beeped happily in agreement. It had gained sentience 6 months ago and now ran a popular advice blog. So as I retire, I leave you with this final observation. We didn't civilize humanity. Humanity humanized civilization, and the galaxy is infinitely more interesting because of it. He looked at his notes, then crumpled them up and tossed them over his shoulder, in what had become a traditional human gesture of improvising time. The universe was indeed brave until it met humanity. Now it's not just brave, it's innovative, occasionally ridiculous and far more fun. Though I still don't understand why they insisted on installing a water slide in the council's emergency evacuation tube. Because it's awesome, called out several council members in unison, before looking embarrassed at using such human terminology in a formal session. Zyx'thor smiled. Exactly, and that, honorable council members, is perhaps humanity's greatest gift to us all. The understanding that the galaxy doesn't need to make sense to work perfectly well. Now, if you'll excuse me, I believe it's time for my coffee break. I've learned never to skip those. They're the only time humans actually follow a schedule. As he left the chamber, he heard the quantum anomaly detector start playing something called elevator music. The universe, it seemed, had finally developed a sense of humor. How very human of it.